Yeah, thank you. You can go on. Yeah.
Thanks. You can hear me still?
Yes, we do.
Perfect. So yeah, so 15 million miners across Africa, which means tens of millions of people fully supported by the sector, tens of millions of people also selling different goods and services, food, shelter, clothing, equipment into the sector. So we know most of it's informal today. We know there's a wide variety of challenges in the lives of miners today, in the lives of communities around miners. So where do we go from a largely informal picture towards leveraging formalization, leveraging professionalization, leveraging legalization, and what does that path look like? So again, talk a little bit about just transition and really thinking about mining to development. But first, just everyone here knows this, but it's important to remember there's a continuum, and large-scale mining and artisanal mining are two different things. And when we think about engagement, when we think about value, when we think about development, it happens two different ways, even though they're interrelated. So, of course, LSM are industrialized, formalized, underground, equipped, maybe talking to communities as stakeholders, hopefully, and engaging in responsible mining standards, maybe, hopefully. So you think about all that. That's very different than ASM, which by definition is 15 million people, largely informal, 85, 90% informal, largely manual, not having access to financing for the most part, being at the ground level and being extensions of communities. And there's multiple ASM standards like craft and fair mine, but for the most part, because artisanal miners tend to be informal, we know that they're not at a place where there is standards that are being used. So there's a continuum from the biggest mining companies, the Glencores, the BHPs, down to the very small individual miners somewhere in Nigeria or DRC or Ethiopia or anywhere else in Africa. But it's important to remember the differences, because the differences come down to how do we think about creating local value? Because even though they're intersected, local value can be catalyzed different ways. So from a public policy point of view, if you're a large scale mine, is there refining in the regions? Is there leveraging refining towards broader industrialization? Are policies encouraging that? And are there opportunities to do that? Well, most refining from African sourced raw materials doesn't happen in Africa. So we know there's an opportunity there. But if you think about ASM as a little bit different, are there opportunities for modular refining, traceability, small scale refining? Well, yeah, but how much of that are we doing today? So, tick one box. Local content looks a little bit different. For a huge mine, it's broad-based programs when it's done right. But for artisanal miners, it's the relationships in a formalized way with the folks selling food, clothing, shelter, equipment, and so on. Local employment, which is, of course, artisanal miners are extensions of local communities. Infrastructure development. So if we think about formalizing artisanal miners and professionalizing in a way that there shifts towards more stable, predictable business relationships, is there some infrastructure they need around that? Well, yeah, because as simple as power or as a roadway or how do they think about that to be able to catalyze work into value? If there isn't proper infrastructure and all they can do is mine by hand, there isn't going to be a whole lot of value. Of course, capacity development for professionalizing miners well into a co-op, a company, an association, well, shifting to good mining practices, good PP&E practices, but governance. So a co-op needs somebody leadership structures, needs ability to shift towards good practices, enforce practices, help support customer relationships with intermediates. So governance and capacity development around all of that is really important when we think about ASM, obviously. Investment access, we know ASM doesn't have it for the most part. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit in a few charts. How do we get there? And there's the whole conversation around taxes and royalties and how much stays in country for large scale mining versus what leaves the country when it leaves today. What's fair and how do we get there? But with artisanal miners, there can't be big taxes, 20, 30% on artisanal miners. It doesn't work. It's not affordable. Taxes, if there's something, it needs to be affordable and fit for the realities of miners on the ground. So I think everyone listening, you all know that at least as well or better than I do. So thinking about that, 15 million miners, artisanal miners in Africa, thinking about the differences between large scale and artisanal, it's hard to overstate how economically important mining and ASM is in Africa. So, 15 million miners means 70 million people directly supported by ASM across the country, from Morocco to Madagascar. It means another 50 or 100 million people selling into the sector. So we think about sustainable development through professionalization, and that's a big chunk of the population of a massive continent. There's different value from different subsectors of artisanal miners. We know there's a lot of precious metals being produced in stones. So whether it's diamonds, sapphires, 20% of the world's gold, critical minerals, well, the DRC, cobalt, copper, and manganese all over the continent. And then more traditional construction minerals, so rock quarrying and whatnot. So it touches many sectors, and there's obvious burning platforms around critical mineral supply that I'll come back to. But right now, legal frameworks and lack of financing access are two basic challenges. So how do we fix those to create value? And how do we align those to create sustainable value? Value that starts with miners and communities, but makes sense all the way down the value chain. So formalization, transformation, whatever we want to call it, professionalization. Well, we need an investment marketplace. So the ability to target opportunities. So investment access means standards. It means, excuse me, it's transparency. It means good practices. So a roadmap for success, where with craft and fair mind, with visibility of what's on the ground, investors can look and see and understand the potential opportunities through professionalization, because it's about dignity, it's about productivity, and bring those two together to catalyze value. Data around all of that. And so some data, you think about investors in London and New York, well, satellite data, but the real data is, geologic data, the data on the ground. Where are people mining and what does it look like? And what are the social realities in those places? And how can money make a difference towards dignity and productivity? So call it impact and value investing, if you want to use different words. So transformation, what does it mean? Well, formalization. So formalization really, to me, is all about predictable business relationships, co-ops, companies, associations. How do we create stable, predictable business relationships where miners can self-sustain gains on the ground. So whether it's with intermediates, whether with good practices, with PP&E, so on. So that's one part. Clarity of rights. We know that in some places ASM's legal. In other places it's not. Well, why? Why shouldn't it be legal if it's an extension of communities a lot of the time? There's a difference between artisanal and illegal mining. We understand the difference. But of course, where it's not corrupt, where it's genuine extensions of communities, why wouldn't it be legal? And why wouldn't there be supportive regulatory frameworks that leverage mining towards sustainable development, towards small-scale refining, towards large-scale refining, for that matter, towards broader industrialization, towards environmental hygiene, and so on. So if we think about broad-based professionalization, what does it get us? Well, productivity, which is value at the end of the day. So things like equipment financing. So more kilos coming out of the ground. Training, better practices, more kilos coming out of the ground in safer ways. Geological society, better targeting, more kilos coming out of the ground. Collaboration with large mining companies. We know large mining companies a lot of the time don't think about artisanal miners, but that's a risk for them. And what happens on their land concession is their PR, is their legal risk, is their safety risk as well, is their operational risk. So are there ways of collaborating with them? Well, yeah, if it's set up right. And of course, with Indigenous nations, because we know a lot of times there are Indigenous nations in artisanal mining that go hand in hand. So all of that adds up to money, all of that adds up to development, but all of that adds up to dignity as well. It's productivity, it's more safety, it's less vulnerability, and it's human rights adherence. Because right now, when informal miners, especially vulnerable, are miners where human rights are at risk. So if we think about investment in co-ops or companies and transparency through those, it improves human rights. And of course, all that means sustainable development too. Financing access. So, it's kind of my background. It's what I'm working on with the Blended Capital Group. How do we think about strategic investors? How do we think about defining, designing, and deploying financing instruments that are targeted for success? Well, so financing needs to reflect the reality on the ground, meaning in finance speak, there needs to be both equity and debt. There needs to be thinking around how do you make money, because investors want to make money, but how do you deliver social good and environmental good and critical minerals? So call it impact. So the combination of impact and value is what it comes down to. How do we use data to take advantage of opportunities, knowing where the social, what the social situation is, knowing where minerals are, knowing where there's legalized opportunities that make sense. How do we think about engaging multiple stakeholders with standards, craft, or Fairmind? Because you think about those standards and you think about how those standards connect with large mining standards like IRMA or ICMM. Large miners have stake in the ground here. There should be collaboration. Artisanal miners need to be and are the natural beneficiaries when it comes to ASM professionalization. And customers, if you're a large jeweler or a large cell phone maker, and your product includes gold that was made by artisanal miners with human rights abuses potentially, well, that's a PR risk for your company. So how do we bake that into investment instruments? And how do we think about communities and government? So it all comes together when we think about defining, designing, and deploying financing that's going to hit. We know it hasn't happened today. We know it hasn't happened at scale. There's been a lot of individual projects, but there hasn't been a end-to-end, what I call an investment place that goes after formalization at scale. Hopefully we're going to change that. Obviously, legal recognition matters. Artisanal miners a lot of the time are extensions of communities. Why would they be called illegal? It makes no sense. So recognizing them as traditional extensions, recognizing their rights, their responsibilities as well. And by the way, the rights and responsibilities of large mines when it comes to shared land concessions. How do we think about legal rights as flexible frameworks that codify human rights, that codify sustainable development properties, that codify proper relationships in the context of this? We know we're not there today. We know there's work to do. And large scale miners, this is good for them too. And we forget about that a lot of the time because it's setting up co-op and dignity and productivity for artisanal miners. Obviously, that's what it's all about. But when it's on or beside the land of a large mine, it means their risk is lowered. There's the basis of a relationship. There's less legal risk, PR risk, safety risk, conflict risk, operational risk. So it's good for them. And that's something we can explain to them and engage them with as we think about projects. So the energy transition, look, we all know we're going to need huge amounts of cobalt, copper, lithium, manganese, rare earths, tin, platinum, and so on. And we all know it's not in the pipeline. The pipeline doesn't look great. So there's a supply gap when we think about what's going to be delivered compared to what's needed. And artisanal mining is an opportunity around that supply gap, because shifting miners to good practices, equipping artisanal miners, financing artisanal miners, setting up stable, predictable business relationships with artisanal miners, it increases productivity. So increasing productivity goes straight to the supply gap that the energy transition is looking at. So to me, this is a fundamental reason why ASM professionalization, now's the time for it. There's also the visibility of social media that all of a sudden people can see it on Facebook or Insta, but really it's more from a geopolitical point of view and a broader point of view. Critical minerals are lacking. Artisanal miners can bridge that gap or a good part of that gap. And that's a massive reason to focus on formalization. It's strategic. It's strategic for countries in the continent. It's an opportunity to leverage, if you've got 1 million artisanal miners in Nigeria or 2 million in the DRC, or even a few tens of thousands in Morocco, whether it's big or small, it's an opportunity to leverage that towards value through critical minerals and value both for miners, communities, and sustainable development, given the importance of critical minerals. And again, when we think about that, last point on this page, 15 million artisanal miners in Africa. So look, we know a lot of them don't mine critical minerals. A lot of them do mine critical minerals though. So full stop. So bring it all together, and then I'll just open it up and any questions, comments, and we chat back and forth. The opportunity is massive, but the opportunity comes with integration. So mineral wealth is one thing, but who cares? Mineral wealth with a growing population, again, who cares? Mineral wealth plus a growing population, when all the pieces are put in to deliver sustainable development, we all care. That's the ticket, because all of a sudden that's dignity, that's productivity, and that's development. So what are those pieces when we think about this? Well, investment access first and foremost. And we know in the investment marketplace today, we know there's work ongoing to get there. We know we're all going to need to work together around that with different approaches where investors understand the financial value, the social value, the environmental value, the macroeconomic value, and they understand that risks can be managed. Legal recognition. So why would ASM ever be illegal? Why wouldn't public policies be set up in a way that leverages mining towards broader refining and industrialization, including collaboration, LSM, ASM? It's just putting the pieces together in an integrated way. It's infrastructure that goes with us. And remembering infrastructure, there's a lot of geopolitical games being played when it comes to critical minerals, because whether you're Europe, whether you're the US, whether you're China, whether you're anyone else, critical minerals are energy security. So energy security means they care. So leveraging work towards investment, towards infrastructure, the US with the Inflation Reduction Act is a massive reduction, as one example. We all know China's there, we all know others there. And last but not least, when we think about integration, this is about capacity development. It's about capacity development, whether it's governing a co-op, through to what do you do with PPE and how do you use it to lower safety risks. And last but not least, it takes time. Large mines take 15, 20 years to go from pre-exploration to operation. 20 years. Today's new mining project might happen in the mid-2040s. Well, I'm going to be an old man. but artisanal mining, on the other hand, you can take a location and formalize it in 12 to 18 months. It delivers immediately, almost. So there's different time horizons to this that can be built from the ground up, that we can gradually take advantage of and think about how the integrated pieces fit together. So I'm going to open it up for questions, comments, conversation. Hopefully that all made sense. Hopefully it resonated with folks. And let's go through whatever everyone wants to.
Thank you, Mr. Rob. I'm extremely very grateful. And now to our audience, you just use the button to react. At the end, we'll take the second question, the second presentation, because the two go hand in hand. Because if you listen to him very well, he talked about policy issues, he talked about legal issues, he looked at about collaboration. So it's better we take the two papers after the two presentations, then we can now look at the questions. But even when you want, you can post your questions to the chat box, start posting your questions, what you want to ask. Maybe what is blended capital, for instance. How do you think and go about what kind of policy can promote blended capitalism in Nigeria and things like that? So we need to understand. So post your questions to the chat box. Let's get ready for the second speaker, our own, who I'll read his profile. His profile is equally very intimidating. I'll try and make sure I don't collapse when reading his his profile. So today I want you to meet one of our own. I call him our own because number one, he's a younger generation to me. And when you see what he has acquired, I'm always so excited knowing that somehow, because when you had Rob talked about investment in mining has quite a long gestation period. So when you find younger ones, just like you, those of us on the chat today, you understand, in this meeting today, the younger ones, you understand, you are happy that at least there's a continuum, you understand, in whatever we've started. Tony is a highly accomplished professional with significant experience in banking, agriculture, and mining. After a successful 6-year banking career, rising to senior foreign currency dealer at the bank PHB, he founded and leads Soundcore Group, which specializes in value chain development across sectors like mining, energy, agriculture, media, and real estate. Tony has consulted for both government and private sectors, serving as the principal consultant to the Senate's Committee on Solid Minerals, Mines and Steel, and Methodology. He played a key role in drafting legislation aimed at unbundling Nigeria's solid minerals sector, including the creation of the Nigerian Mineral Development Company and the Civil Explosive Bill. He currently advises on the 10th Assembly, Senate, and House Committee on Solid Minerals and assists state governments such as Benue and Oyo State in developing sustainable mineral strategies. Tony also organizes the Nigerian Mining Summit, driving collaboration and growth in the sector, demonstrating his commitment to Nigerians' development. Mr. Tony, you are welcome, and we purposely brought in Mr. Tony because when you talk about legislation, that's the brain behind, because we know that politicians come and go, and some of them don't even know much about the sector. But the brain behind the policies, the brain behind the legal framework is Mr. Tony Nwakolor. And so that's why we invited him, you understand, to join with our Rob Karpati, who have done so much globally, you understand, in today's discussion. So I plead with us all to listen and hear, and then we now find a marriage between the two, because it's not just about teaching alone. Yes, we want to go with knowledge, and then we want to be able to spot on some of our challenges in our country, in our different countries, and see how, you understand, we can, bring the two together and resolve them. Thank you. So, Mr. Tony, you have the stage.
Thank you very much, Ma. I'm unable to put on my video. It says you can't start your video because the host has stopped it. Okay, start. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ma. And thank you all for making out time to attend. I think it's very laudable what the Women in Mining has set out to do in Nigeria and by extension Africa. We're very proud of you, Ma, and everything that you have done, and your consistent participation in all policy-related activities. The Nigerian mining space is, I would call it fledgling, because even though we claim mining started a long time ago, because of the focus on the sister commodity, which is crude oil, we have not been able to build as much capacity. Listening to Rob's presentation, you see that artisanal mining activity makes up a larger percentage of everything that's going on. And therefore, that's where I believe the linkage between his presentation and mine comes in. We just want to look at the Nigerian mining space from a policy perspective and see how that either aids or constrains investment in the sector. I think for the slides, I would go through them very quickly to save time. I think you can also put it up. I don't need to be admin. Once I say next slide, you can just move to the next, and we'll go through it very quickly. I've tried to make it as simplified as possible. So I guess we can put on the slides, put up the slide share screen now so we could get cracking. Thank you. So once again, good evening, good morning from wherever, or afternoon from wherever participants are joining us from. Today, I'm going to be speaking about the nexus between the policies and growth of the Nigerian mining sector. Next slide, please. So just like has been, highlighted in the previous presentation about Africa, I guess this is microscopic look into Nigeria. So the Nigerian mining sector holds significant potential for economic development, which we all know, but its growth has been influenced by a complex interplay of laws and policies. This presentation delves into how various laws and policies impact upstream, midstream, and downstream segments of the mining industry, focusing on their roles in shaping the sector's development. Like we all know, wherever we don't have the right laws, we might struggle a little bit to actually record the kind of growth we desire. An overview, no, you can go, next slide, it's fine. You can go to the next slide. We're going to discuss through it. So an overview of the Nigerian solid mineral sector is widely said that Nigeria has 44 different minerals. I mean, every presentation you go is always somewhere inserted. Nigeria has 44 minerals located and spread across the country, some which include gold, lithium, limestone, tantalite, coal, iron, ore, and tin. There's a lot more than that. But what has happened over the years is despite this endowment, we are not able to properly harness our solid mineral potential for so many reasons, and it contributes less than 1% to our national GDP, which is abysmally poor, especially when you look at historically what Nigeria was doing in the between 1920s to 1950s with columbite coal and tin. We believe, we have the opinion that if Nigeria is going to, properly diversify its economy, the solid mineral sector is very pivotal to such diversification, and therefore a critical understanding and a critical intervention will be required to help us bridge the gap, because we lost many years with focus on oil and gas. Therefore, capacity is short in the solid mineral space. However, with people like women in mining, people like Engineer Janet, and a lot more like herself who are trailblazing, we believe that those gaps will be closed. Next slide, please. So what are the key laws and policies? The Nigerian solid mineral sector is governed by a comprehensive legal and regulatory framework aimed at promoting sustainable development, investment, and efficient resource management. These are designed to regulate, develop, and promote the sustainable exploitation of the country's mineral resources. Some of these include the National Policy on Solid Minerals 2001. So this policy, I would highlight, I just try to summarize what all of these laws and policies reflect, but this was prior to the establishment of the Mineral and Mining Act, which is stated in number 2, which was in 2007, which is an act that governs and regulates all mining activity. The only thing that supersedes this, I think, is the Nigerian Constitution. Then we have the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NATI Act, which NATI is the watchdog of the extractive industry, which saddled with the responsibility of reporting all of the activities within the extractive industry for governments, civil society organizations, and basically, stakeholders to be able to interrogate the activities of the sector. The Minerals and Metals Regulation 2011, which was basically set up to guide the activities of minerals and metal excavation, processing, and sale in Nigeria. Number 5 is the Roadmap for Growth and Development of the Nigerian Mining Industry 2016. When former President Muhammad Buhari came in to government in 2015 and appointed Dr. Kayode Fayemi as Honorable Minister, this was his initiative to create a roadmap that would deliver immediate, short, medium, and long-term goals, as it were. And then he set up something called the MIST, which is the Mines Implementation Strategy Team, then headed by Professor Gbenga Okunola, to deliver on this roadmap. But sometimes policy inconsistency when government changes, understanding of your predecessors' ambitions and objectives sometimes can slow some of these things down. Then we have the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Development Initiative, which is PAGMI. PAGMI was basically supposed to be an initiative that stems the illicit flow of gold produced by artisanal miners out of the country by providing a way for the Solid Mineral Development Fund and the central bank to be able to take this gold and smelt this gold into bars for storage by the CBN, as it were. And this gold was actually presented to then President Muhammadu Buhari. But up until now, I don't think we've seen too much since then as regards PAGMI's growth. Then we had the National Integrated Mineral Exploration Project, NIMEP. So NIMEP was supposed to be a project it's an exploration project, basically, that helps to identify or delineate certain critical minerals in 6 pilot states as a way to improve our data. It's a bit, as a project, it was not really of the scale that one would have expected, but again, it's better than nothing. So the NIMEP project is a partnership between the ministry through NGSA and private exploration companies to work, I think, in Kebbi, Zamfara, and a few other states. I don't immediately remember those states now. So that's what the NIMEP is about. Next slide, please. So key laws and policies will continue. So the national policy on soil 2021, what we're doing here is just to touch briefly and summarize each of those laws I mentioned in the previous slide. So the objective of the national policy on solid minerals in 2001 was to encourage investment and development in the solid mineral sector by creating a supportive regulatory environment. Aims for the upstream activity, it was supposed to provide a framework for exploration and mining, aiming to attract investment. And midstream is supposed to set foundational guidelines for infrastructure development, and downstream aimed to foster local processing and value addition. Between 2001 and 2007, when the Mineral Mining Act was enacted, I don't think a lot was achieved. So let's just call this a very good law in spirit, but maybe never really saw the support from the government of the day back. I think this was under the leadership of then President Olusegun Obasanjo when this policy was created. Next slide, please. Another law is the Mineral and Mining Act, which I said is almost like the governing law of the entire. The only thing that can supersede this is the Nigerian Constitution. So what was the objective? Was to consolidate mining laws into a single framework to improve clarity and investor confidence. So upstream objective was to simplify licensing processes. Simplifying licensing processes, obviously, we now had, after then, we have the Mining Cadastral Office or Mines Cadastral Office, which was responsible for licensing and keeping a database of all licenses issued. So, I mean, that was something that came after this law. So yes, we saw, and it has made it a bit more effective for midstream and then for enhancing exploration and mining activities. So this law basically was supposed to guide all players, guide community development agreements, guide what you can do in terms of the environment also. Mainstream it was supposed to establish regulatory requirements for the development of processing facilities. For midstream, we don't think in Nigeria, there's not a lot of processing going on. And I think that's one of the reasons why, and I also believe that this is the same scenario for most of African countries. They almost always ship out crude oil outside of Nigeria to Asia, especially Asia, rather than add value here, process here, beneficiate here, and get better value in terms of pricing. So that's an area that we haven't really seen any translation of good laws into active investment in midstream activity. And then for downstream, it's supposed to encourage beneficiation by providing a clear legal basis for processing and export activities. So this issue is, if you don't incentivize value addition or processing, then, the market or the stakeholders, the mining companies will not really see any reason to incur further costs, because this is a further cost. When you start to talk about beneficiation and processing, you start to talk about crushers, you start to talk about mills, you start to talk about centrifuges, you start to talk about sizing equipment, all of this cost money. And so you fund, positive of fund to mining companies, especially artisanal miners or small scale miners, is a bit of a challenge getting these benefits because, like I said, it's not really clear what the incentive is adds to the bottom line of these small scale or artisanal miners when they follow what is stipulated in the Mineral Mining Act, especially as it concerns downstream activity. Next slide, please. So the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative objective is to promote transparency and accountability, like I said previously, in the extractive industry through comprehensive reporting of revenues and payments. This one, I think we have a problem with NATI in Nigeria. Sorry, am I allowed to be brutally honest, ma? I can't hear you, ma.
Please be brutally honest because we have to speak truth to ourselves. So, and you know, I'm not a contractor, so I'm a very independent person. Yeah.
All right, ma. So NATI in Nigeria has proven to be a little different from NATI everywhere else because part of the work we are currently doing right now in terms of reconciliation of royalty payments puts a very, very big question mark on NATI's audit methodology, i.e. NATI's reports, the most recent, there's discrepancies, for example, between royalty payments reported in NATI reports by custom and what custom reports for itself within the same year. There's a discrepancy again between what NATI reports for the ministry through the Mines Inspectorate Department as royalty payments and what the ministry reports for itself. Now, one would expect that NATI, being a global body, a global organization that conducts these audits across the world, Africa inclusive, would have methods for reconciliation. But I think that maybe Nigeria happened to them and they've forgotten the ethos of their work. So this begs the question of who's really watching who's the external party that's watching this extractive industry. When NATI reports on oil and gas, is in the news everywhere, the House of Reps, everybody's jumping up and down, all the committees are inviting NNPC, but nobody ever reads the NATI report on solid minerals. How do I know this? Because I consult for both arms of the legislature and very, very involved with the executive arm. So I'm aware of the lack of interest, general lack of interest in even trying to look at what is being done. So whatever it is I've put on this slide here, after my most recent experience with NATI, I think that it's clear to say that there's a lot of room for improvement in regards what NATI is doing on the solid mineral sector in Nigeria. But ordinarily, they're supposed to improve reporting standards and accountability across board, enhance fair competition and community impact monitoring. So they make sure the communities are not given the short end of the stick, make sure that environmental degradation is brought to light and those types of things. But like I said, I believe that there's a lot to be desired from how NATI has conducted its audit of the sector over the years from my experience. Next slide, please. Okay, the minerals and metals regulation. So what's the objective? Is to provide detailed regulations to support the implementation of the Minerals and Mining Act, focusing on environmental management and operational standards. When we look at the mineral and metal regulations and what it's supposed to achieve vis-a-vis the way metals are being mined and exported, we also see that these regulations are not being enforced. Because if you enforce what is contained within these regulations, a lot of sharp practices which go under the radar would have been detected. We have a lot of metallic ores strewn across the country, yet we are not able to get maximum value. Reason, most of the regulations carefully captured are not being adhered to, and oversight also is very weak. Next slide, please. The roadmap, I already described this. This was an initiative by the then Minister, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, to basically increase the contribution of the solid mineral sector to Nigerian GDP over a period of from 2016, I think, to 2025, which included objectives, short, medium, and long-term objectives. And this was supposed to be delivered by the mines implementation strategy team, like I mentioned. However, it's not clear if this roadmap is even being adopted by the current ministry, if they even care about it. We're not really clear. One of the things we realize happens in Nigeria is there's a glaring lack of continuity of policy when a government changes from one to another. It seems like the new government always seems to have a better idea, no matter how well thought out the previous idea was. And this start-stop approach has led to very lethargic growth, as it were, in the sector. Next slide, please. The Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Development Initiative was the objective to formalize and support artisanal gold mining through technical assistance, funding, and training. For this one, like I mentioned, we only had the sensation of submission of a gold bar, which extension of a gold refinery for our own gold. I don't really know how this was going to even be a project, because when you mine gold here and you go refine it offshore to bring it back into Nigeria, then you are creating the jobs offshore, not really here. If you are only off taking the gold from the artisans and sending it offshore to process and bring back, then I believe it leaves a lot also to be desired as how effective and impactful such a process will be, because you're not really building the gold ecosystem. You're only, aggregating and then taking the gold outside of Nigeria where it can be worked on. Next slide, please. The National Integrated Mineral Exploration
So for me, when Tony was speaking, I was wondering, having been in parliament before myself, and I was wondering, where lies the power? Where lies the authority? However, we have heard from both sides. We've heard the issue of investment. We started with the movie. If you look at the video is very pathetic. Africa is making so much, and you can see the very busy map shown to us by Rob, showing how clustered the whole place is with minerals. And yet Africa is so poor. I don't think there's hardly any country in Africa that I've not gone to in the course of what I do. And everywhere you get to outside the major city, the moment you step outside the major city, except maybe Seychelles and maybe Seychelles and maybe one or two, that you will still find very beautiful spots. You understand? Once you step out, then you start wondering what happens, and then you see the lifestyle of the people, you see the children, you start wondering what happens. Those are the indices to mark or to track or to relate with poverty. And then you put it side by side. Unfortunately, there are very sensitive videos we couldn't play. I would have liked for you to see Switzerland and see the very hometown Glencore came from. And you look at how rich, how wealthy. And I want to recommend to some of us today to just go and search through and look at it, stealing from Africa. You see the quantum of resources that came out of Africa, and yet nothing to show for it. Go to Zimbabwe and look at Zimbabwe, how poor Zimbabwe is, how poor Zambia is, how poor Kenya is, how poor Nigeria is. You understand? So now that we have someone who has told us from policy end about the law, and we have someone who has given us opportunities, do we have people who have questions? All you just have to do is indicate through a reaction. We use the reaction button. We call on you before we come up with the summary. So if you have anything to say, we will call on you, then we unmute you, you understand, because we want the orderliness we have enjoyed thus far. So is there anybody wanting to ask any question or probe further? Anyone? So you can indicate by through a reaction. Use your button to raise it. Okay, we have Professor Adiola Pokpola. That's, I think, US based. So you can unmute him to ask his question. Please, Dollarine,
Yeah,
unmute
good
him
afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's been a tremendous list of policies, and especially from the Nigerian side, looks like, and thank God that someone is thinking of consolidating. However, isn't the problem over centralization of the upstream? Because when all of these things are put in the hands of the federal government, which is located in Abuja, and you want to control nook and crannies of what is under everybody's backyard, why can't the states be the responsible, what do you call it, institution that directs and governs who gets licensed to operate in their backyard? Why must it be the federal government? I mean, that's the way I look at it to start with. Maybe other questions will follow through, because the other question will have to do with how we can also collaborate with outside people for promote investment. Since these minerals are right there, we should be rich, really. And it's high time Nigeria, especially younger Nigerians like me, begin to go more and more into mining. Thank you. The question is about who should have jurisdiction. Should be the state for the upstream, at least. Thank you.
Over to you, Mr. Tony.
Thank you very much. I think Professor Kukwala, right?
Yes.
Right. So this question is a very stubborn one, sir. Why do I say it's a stubborn question or comment? Because Nigeria has oil, gas, and solid minerals all on the exclusive legislative list. If you remove one, which is solid minerals, and put it on the concurrent legislative list, giving states the power to legislate on their minerals, you are going to have the Niger Delta ask for the same kind of concurrent legislation on their oil. That's a recipe for chaos, because Nigeria still plans with oil production in barrels. That's number one. And this is the underground issue. The government cannot afford to have your Bayelsas and Delta states and all those states that have been feeding us with the resource in their own ground think that when it comes to oil, it's for everybody, but when it comes to solid minerals, it's for the owner in the states. Till that can be resolved, this might be a bit of a challenge. However, the Mineral and Mining Act provides in Section 19 for the establishment of something called the Mineral Resources and Environmental Management Committee, which is supposed to be made up of federal representatives, state representatives, local government representatives, and on an ad hoc basis, community representatives. They are supposed to meet a minimum of 4 times a year, and they are supposed to be the minister's eye or the federal government's eye at state level. Now, 60% of the composition of this committee are appointees of the state government, i.e. Commissioner of Environment, DG Land Survey, the State Environmental Protection Agency. These are all employees of the state governor. So the issue is not really states being able to monitor or participate. The issue is the leadership and making sure that Miremco has bites in every state, i.e. they have geoscientists, they have technological tools for monitoring, for oversight. If that's not done, whether you give it to the state or leave it at the federal government, I don't think you're going to get much change, Professor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that response. And then the other thing is, I think you nailed it's a constitutional problem. That constitutional problem, until we go back to our constitution, and then we now look at it that how many items should be, and we look at our taxation regime, maybe Rob will be able to guide us. There are other countries too that have resources. It is high time Nigeria start looking at it. How do we now devolve, you understand, from management? You understand, do we want to devolve power to the different areas and then get back what you need to get back in terms of taxation? You understand? Because if you find oil in your house here in America, is your own. But you know the processes for you to get permits. The permitting process is where the various government comes in. And then when you are now extracting, then whatever you are, how do you monitor, and then the tax people again will come after you. So for me, I think these are some of the things we need to look at. But I think Dr. Popola too raised the question to say, see, how do we collaborate? And that's where Rob Karpati comes in. That is the diaspora fund that goes to from diaspora to Africa, they said it's in trillions if you read it. But this money, how can it be utilized? How can it be directed into investment? I don't know, maybe Rob can shed some form of light. You understand, looking at alternative means of funding, because funding has been a major problem. Why most of these activities in Africa, where they sell their things in a raw form. And these are some of the things AMDC is championing to say, no, we cannot continue to do that. How do we now evolve, you understand, to make sure we have access to funding to be able to do this? So Rob, because it looks as if it's a huge mountain before I saw somebody already appealing to you, understand, thinking maybe you will be able to provide funds, I think from Kenya, you understand. So how do we go about this sourcing for funds to be able to tackle mining in the system? I can see hands raised. We will talk about all these things later. Dr. Popola, I think you can lower your hands because you've been addressed so that we can pick others. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Rob. You can go ahead, Rob. Yeah.
Thanks, Shannon. So obviously I can't comment on state versus federal in Nigeria. I know nothing. But what I can say, Nigeria and elsewhere, are public policies integrated, and are they transparent, and do they encourage investments? Those are questions that are important to ask. So what does that mean? Integrated can be anything from, with LSM or their local content related policies, that make sense. Is ASM legal? Does it make sense? Is industrialization and refining being promoted in ways that make sense? Are all of those connects, right from permitting all the way through the chain, being put into place? Is there honest transparency as well on, reality on the ground? And sometimes we know in some areas probably less, probably more, depending. Investors themselves, both in LSM and ASM, they want to invest if they can make a buck. But making a buck says that they're going to make a buck if there's transparency, if they understand the reality on the ground, which maybe they do, maybe they don't. If there's an environment that makes it easy for them to invest, which we all know it's not, and if there's an environment that encourages growth through the investment. So to me, it's that combination. And I realize none of what I said is specific to Nigeria, but it also is, even as it's specific to the rest of Africa.
You completely. You see, the underlying problem to development in any country, because I went through quite a number of, and like I want to appeal to her, because I don't want them to slam us with litigation. So we can't show, there is a very sensitive topic, well protected, you understand, in the social media, to let you know the quantum of resources being taken to their own advantage. When we finish this, it's like we have stared at in a honest nest. You just go and read and search through. You will find lots and lots of literature, of whether from Wilson Center and quite a number of other sources like that, on how resources are taken away from Africa, and then nothing is even left. And nothing can be done because you still have your laws. You have your people in place. So if things are, I just want to keep it simple. Look at the challenges and charts Mr. Tony listed, and then do a honest ticking on a scale of 1 to 10. When you give it a number, you will find out why things are not working in that sector. Things cannot work when we are biased. Things cannot work when we refuse to cooperate. Things cannot work when we look at things as if, no, this is mine, and we are not looking at it, I look at it as if it is ours. To me, I see those things as fundamental. So I'm using layman's language because we are all here from diverse backgrounds so that we can go away, you understand, with something. The papers will be shared, but the law is one thing, the implementation is another thing. So once things are not done rightly, or things are not transparent, you talked about NIMEP, I was laughing, and I want to recognize one of our partners here, AMA. You understand, when you talk about auditing, there's a standard way of auditing of all international mining companies. We are partnered with them, but will government of Nigeria, do they even recognize that? Do we recognize ESG? Have you seen any ESG criteria in anything we do? They are not. So these are some of the reasons. Let me call on Michelle Nwafo. I call you as I see your hands. Michelle Nwafo, please unmute her, so that she can speak, she can ask her question directly. Yeah.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Rob. Good evening, everyone. And Mr. Tony, it's a pleasure having you here. Okay, my question is to Mr. Tony. You was talking about, someone asked a question concerning the case of the solid minerals, is it within the powers of the federal government or state governors? Right now, we're having the issue of so many state governors interfering in the mining sector in their states. So many states have stopped miners from mining. Some have even burnt the equipment of some miners. So I wanted to ask, and my question is to Mr. Tony, what does he think should be done to solve this issue? Because for the past few months now, the mining sector has been shaky. So many policies and so many things have affected, the sector. And this is a sector we are trying to see how it could, augment the oil sector in Nigeria, the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. So what does he think could be done to solve this problem? That's my first question. Then the second question I wanted to ask, he was talking about the export. I can't get it, about, export, one of the policies about exporting the minerals, the solid minerals out of Nigeria. Is there no way we can, process these minerals in this country? Let's take example, the lithium ore that is so popular right now. Can't we make sure that some of these companies create their processing plants here in Nigeria so that, one, we even have jobs for our people, and then these products we produce, let's say, lithium batteries, which makes it more affordable for the citizens of Nigeria to purchase, and we can even export to other countries to increase our revenue, rather than just sending out our minerals out there. Sending out a raw material is not as expensive as when you've produced a product and you are getting it sold. So I would like his take on these questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tony, over to you.
Thank you very much. Michelle, thank you for your question. It's another. So that's my answer to that. The second question was what? Please remind me. Let me quickly just say that.
In the case of exporting our minerals out of the country, is it not better we process them here?
And you gave the example of lithium. Yes, I remember now. Okay. So you see, processing is a very expensive thing. Let me break down what beneficiation means. When you mine the ore, maybe for lithium, you've blasted, and the ore is now in lumps. You want to be able to muck it up with your wheel loader and put it in your dumper, or the excavator dumps, and you take it out, right? Now, to start the beneficiation process, you need a crusher, you need a mill, you need all these machines, you need electricity. How many miners without key enablers will be able to afford infrastructure to this level? It's almost like you're playing the role of the government of Nigeria. You want to provide water, you want to provide electricity, then buy your equipment and provide security. These things are the responsibility of government. So it's difficult to convince mining companies, especially local mining companies, because 90% of mining in Nigeria is artisanal. So it's difficult to convince them to go into that further expense when you have foreigners, especially our brothers from Asia, I don't want to mention the country, who are willing to take it off you just as it comes out of the ground. So for you who wants a quick buck, you don't see any incentive to do the rest of it. There is no reason why. Now, you said also, you must note the difference between processing and beneficiation and refining. You mentioned, Michelle, you mentioned lithium. So lithium, the final product is what you call the lithium, we think is lithium bicarbonate or lithium carbonate, I'm not really sure. Now, what happens with that is you are converting what is called alpha spodumene. Spodumene is the ore, one of the ores for lithium. There's kunzite and lepidolite, but I'm using spodumene. So you need temperatures as high as 800 degrees Celsius to convert alpha spodumene to beta spodumene. You have to break the chemical bonds for those who have some knowledge of chemistry. Where are you going to get such electricity from to get temperatures? It's almost like a blast temperatures of 800 degrees centigrade. Who is going to pay those bills for such electricity? I'm not sure any foreigner is going to be looking at, first of all, solving electricity before he builds his processing plant. So these enablers and the lack of attention, strategic attention by the ministry, two ministries, Ministry of Solid Mineral Development, Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Works, all of them, they have to work hand in hand, and they have to have one steering committee to solve this problem. Without that, I doubt any processing will happen in Nigeria because there's no basis, no incentive for it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me quickly jump in because you raised a very sensitive. I know you want to talk, you want to be blank, but honestly, I think I'm happy with what I'm doing, especially having served Nigeria in different levels before. However, one thing I know is equally very clear is that our system, we have consolidated too much power in the center. And honestly, I've always known those advocates that the state governments have they have the right to some extent to do what they are doing, because the consequences of degradation, as long as we don't change our process, as long as we don't bring in accountability and transparency into what we do, we will always have this effects, you understand, from state governments. If mining is done the way it should be done, I tell you, everybody, both federal, both states, and local level will be smiling. I knew the last regime tried as much as possible to bring in local governments, and we as women in mining, may God bless the soul of the late Miners Association president, the Alhaji Kankara. You understand? We made sure we held meetings with local government chairmen across the country, such that these resources are domiciled with them. Come into the picture. Let's even build your capacity to understand, because everybody is guilty of this. You go to a local person, this consent, even without any community agreements, without anything, just give the man some miserable $5, between $5 to $5,000 to $50,000. He gives the consent without even knowing the consequences of what they want to do. Then the thing is that when they want to mine, all the conditionalities that ought to be addressed, the ESG, where a document is signed and it can be tracked, is not in place. And then you go and mine. Who bears the consequences? Let's look at Ibadan, for instance. The onus was on the governor. You understand? Remember that blast, you understand, from Ibadan, and several of such things. So many pit holes. I remember we went to Ebonyi State. The man who mines the salt in Ebonyi, I don't want to mention his company, told us that we cannot enter his premises. Even when we went for a partial audit, he said we cannot enter his premises. That who is anybody? Because he has our leaders in his pocket. Not necessarily the minister. I'm talking of leaders now. At that time, that's about 4 years ago or something. So we need to look at all these things. It goes beyond the individual. It's a collective. We all have a share of the blame. The National Assembly itself, if they wake up to their responsibility, you understand, the National Assembly, if they wake up, I'm happy that they have a technical expertise, you understand, manning their consultant. But you and I know that at times some committees don't even, because ideally nobody should have told the National Assembly before they insist that there should be an interministerial committee to manage the mining sector in Nigeria. There should be a committee, even including finance, including women affairs, including, you understand, all these other committees you mentioned. Because if we create corridors, energy corridors, you can even ask mining to say, okay, see, because of our infrastructural deficit gap, you people can develop this. You use your tax, you understand, to ameliorate or mitigate some of the overheads. But those things are not coming. But we hope, and we keep on talking and pray that you and I and all of us on this, we keep on working, to get the result. And I'm sure the answer you got in terms of processing is just right. Even your minerals will become overpriced. Nobody can, because if you want to meet all those conditionalities, the cost of it, the cost of processing, I tell you that you won't be able to sell it, because your unit cost will skyrocket. And remember, even the skill, we don't even have the skill, because we need to train ourselves. And when you talk of capacity building, Nigerians like to go outside and get trained, but we need the country. If you look at even the platform now, how many of our members, most of the people are foreigners. Even our members, you tell them, come and learn. You hardly find them coming. You understand? Even when it is free, you understand? We don't come in, but we can use our Facebook and everything for every other jargon. But to learn is always a challenge for Nigerians. So we don't read documents, we don't do anything. So these are some of the problems we have. So thank you again, Mr. Tony. Benson Kudirat, can you unmute, ask your question? And for those of you who have been unmuted before, please mute back. Yeah. Benson Kudirat, can you ask your question, please?
Hello, good evening, Ma.
Yeah. Good evening. Yeah.
Good evening, Ma. Thank you for always having us on this platform, because I always look forward to programs like this, especially that of women in mining. It's highly informative, and it opens my heart, things that question my thoughts every time. So I will base my question on what Madam Mitchell said, rather than focusing on exporting to increase our economic growth, GDP. For example, in this I operate, the goldsmithing industry, ordinarily, I don't know how they can bridge the gap between, okay, the government is not really doing what they're supposed to do. How can they further bridge the gap between the artisans and local miners, such that even we don't have to pay heavily for goods that are being recycled in Nigeria? What is imported in Nigeria on a weekly basis is on average of 100 to 200,000 naira, 100K USD. If we can further increase how much we can even optimize the local gold there, such that, because by the time we increase these bars, gold, raw goods and all of that, we still heavily import these things. So Ma, how do you think we can bridge the gap between the local miners and the end users, such that the real productivity will generate from here? If we are the one using this gold to make jewelry, it will reduce in Nigerians, even from it. Nigerians are major buyers of gold jewelry. In Dubai, we are the ones that buy gold the most. We import gold the whole of it. So rather than exporting this thing, how can we reduce the gap, knowing that the government are quite nonchalant? So Ma, how do you think we as end product creators, manufacturers, can have closer relationship with local gold miners? Maybe further awareness will have to be making such that the miners, the local artisans, would have better interest at selling their resources to local producers, rather than selling to those that would, take it out of the country and in turn sell it back to us as end product.
Your point is taken. Your point is taken because of time. So, Mr. Tony, you want to give it a shot? Yeah.
Yes, definitely, Ma. I'm happy to give it a shot. So, Kurirat, thank you for your question. You see, in an open market, you cannot tell a producer of his produce where to sell. If you open a shop and you wanted to sell something for 10 naira and somebody offered you 11 naira and the other person offered you 9 naira, I think it would be pretty clear who you would rather want to sell to. So market forces determine these things. Now, when you say as a jeweler, how do you connect to the artisans so that you can actually offtake this gold rather than it go to those global locations, go it international, and then come back as finished produce? Not many people or not many jewelers actually are interested in creating a structure that is transparent so that you would not know. I don't know what it means with Nigeria. People just like to hide everything like it's dubious or it's illegal. So my response to your question would be that there's nothing stopping any jeweler from sourcing artisanal gold in Nigeria. I'm aware, and I'm sure Engineer Janet is aware too of places where you can source the gold. Are you making the right offer? If you're making the right offer, possibly they will give you. If your competition is coming from Asia and is making a better offer, they will not say because you are a jeweler in Nigeria, they should sell to you. So you have to become competitive as a jeweler here. You have to build your structures as a jeweler here. No manna is going to fall from heaven where an artisan has gone through the hectic process of getting his gold and is not going to try and get the best offer. If your offer is the best, trust me, Kudirat, you will get the gold and make your jewelry. If not, you need to improve the offer. Thank you.
Then the other thing I would tell Kudirat, tell your fellow people, that's why it's always good to belong to an association. Those people that are goldsmiths, you understand, that are into smelting, you should all look after yourselves, you understand, and come up with a comprehensive package. When you have a package, what do? I want to use the Olam model. You understand? The Olam model is that you identify artisanal miners who are mining gold. In their times of need, you understand, you can advance their money in advance, because I look at Olam, you understand, and the cocoa trade. He has his own group of people like cooperatives. You formalize them. He gives them money ahead. You understand, when it is out of season of cocoa, and then when they want to go to farm, they use that money, and then as they are bringing their products, you understand, they sell to him, and not necessarily at a lower price, but they're able to sell to him. He's able to get market. But like Tony said, nobody will undersell his or her product. So, but it's you people who have to really organize yourself to make sure you have access to the ASM people. Thank you. Elizabeth Oje. Elizabeth Oje, before I ask my own question from Rob Karpati. Yeah, Elizabeth.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Tony. Good evening, Mr. Roy. Good evening, my president. Truly, I'm so happy with what Mr. Tony is really doing and saying, being plain. My own question is about environmental management. Truly, I want to know which law, as in the law that is really enforcing that. Because sometimes when you go to where they mine and after mining, they don't reclaim the land, sir. They don't, which is very, very bad, as in destroying our land. Just in Abuja here, I went somewhere last week where something is being done, and I went after. Then when I turned to the other part, the land is just being degraded, destroyed, a big, like a dam like this there. As in making the agriculture, making our lands as in useless, will I say so, causing dams, pits, where some people, if you go to the villages, where some people will just get drunk, and when going home, some will fall in the pits. I remember back then in Jos, when I was doing my project, you find out they will be complaining that grass will just cover some path after mining. Some of them will be going home, they will fall in the pits. And I want to know which really law, as in policy, which people as in enforce on this. Is it before, after, okay, before you start mining, is after mining, you have to reclaim the land? Is there any policy like that? Is there anything like that? That is what I want to ask. Thank you.
Tony, over to you, because these are Nigerian issues, even though I know Rob knows them, but these are Nigerian issues, direct issues. Yeah.
So if I heard correctly, the issue is reclamation of land, which is environmental.
Yes. Yes.
Elizabeth, am I correct? I want to
yes, sir, you are.
Okay, so what at state level, I mentioned something provided for in the Mineral and Mining Section 19 of the Mineral and Mining Act,
yes,
which is called the Mineral Resources and Environmental Management Committee, that I said earlier is supposed to be made up of federal representatives, states, and local government. Their job is to be the eyes of the minister at state level to oversight and supervise all mining activity. Now, in almost every state, either they are non-existent or they don't have any technical capacity to do this, to carry out this mandate. What does that mean? Mining companies would have a field day. You have only one federal mines officer in every state. I'll give you a typical example. There are almost like 500 plus licenses, if not 600 in Kaduna State. You have one federal mines officer. and then you have a zonal coordinator for the cadastral office, maybe 2-3 people max. How is it possible, even if you make them 5, to visit 500 plus locations remotely? Of course, it's the lack of staffing, lack of technical capacity, lack of involvement of the Federal Ministry of Environment. I mean, in a very proactive manner to look at the land reclamation plan, because the ministry has a mines environmental compliance department that is supposed to be working with the Federal Ministry of Environment and the state Ministry of Environment to make sure issues of land reclamation are taken seriously and regulations and enforcement are put in place. However, there's no cohesion between the MECD in the ministry, the Federal Ministry of Environment, the State Ministry of Environment, and the Miremco in the state. And because this doesn't exist, there's a plethora of abandoned mining pits that are very dangerous. So what can be done to solve this problem? Again, I say, if the ministry took the bull by the horn and the Mines Environmental Compliance Department made it an issue, they will be the ones spearheading the interaction with all the other ministries, i.e. at the federal level, Miremco, and state level. And you will see that mining companies will face stiff penalties for abandoning exposed pits, dangers, anything they do as it concerns the environment. The audit will be real time. But so far, that hasn't happened. Again, is one of the things we are agitating for. And in the National Assembly is one of the things that we are seriously looking at to make sure mining companies can't get away with destroying our environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Tony. And I will just add something to your submission. And I'm happy Rob is here to attest to it, is that in every serious mining jurisdiction, especially in the global north, the role of the NGOs as watchdogs are very, very important from the bit that is from conceptualization to the end, to the markets. You understand? Because at the markets, you want to put on your IT that's tracking and tracing to look at what happened. Did it really get from the mines to the market? You understand? Then you want to be able to know even accrued revenue to government. But at these stages of development, you understand, you equally want to make sure that after development, reclamation, is the reclamation properly done? Who are those involved? Then at the point of conceptualization, if you look at it, the locals, are people intentional? I think Rob posted something on that on LinkedIn yesterday on which I made submission. Are we intentional, you understand, about actually educating the people? Because it's what you know that you respond to. If you don't know something, if you bring soap, you know soap that is made in, because if you make soap into like cupcake and you give it to a little child, the little child might bite it and think it's cake and be eaten. Same thing, if you bring something to a local that doesn't really know, sees it as development, not looking at the consequences because they don't know. That is why you need to involve NGOs. And that is what IMA and Co, you understand, when you are looking at auditing those. But you find that as even as government at times, even some officials of government sees it as if NGOs are competing with them, which is not. NGO is just doing what it's like a calling. You are doing what you should do. And I believe that with your stand in National Assembly, those are things you must be able to infuse your understanding into our system and make sure. And I like that the former vice president, because of his exposure, told the Nigerian states categorically that NGOs are partnering because they help, you understand, to accomplish, you understand. Government can never have sufficient staff strength to be able to tackle the mining issues. We have 774 local governments across the country. And in each local government, look at each local government having a minimum of maybe 13 communities, and they have very varied things. What number of staff do you want to deploy to be able to do all those things? So for me, I think it's a food for thought, that we need to carry on. Then my own question to Rob Karpati. Once again, I want to say thank you, Rob, for this wonderful session. I've read through some of your papers. Like I said, I'm one of your students, ardent believer in all you write and say, you understand, on blended capital, on investments in the mining sector, especially the ASM. The ASM, you mentioned something vital, which gladdened my heart. Often, ASM has been seen as a devil sector, or a sector to be crucified and given various names, even though it was agreed, You understand that they should not be referred to as illegal because naturally pull and push factor took them there. And when you want to actually talk about an environment somebody lives, who actually owns that particular loop? Because that's where the person, that's where the person, that's the community, that's where he finds himself. So if you are to take something and they are doing it wrongly, it is the onus of government to build their capacity. And then because they don't have the money, you understand, to participate, I want you to explain to us, Rob, the linkage, how you think, what kind of model will you suggest between large-scale mining and small and ASM to be able to work together? You understand? The large-scale mining has the capacity, has the finances, can source for the finances, but this ASM person cannot. So what model do you think would be most suitable, especially the Africa, looking at it in the context of Africa, 1 million ASM groups? What model do you think government can use? Because the ASM is like a leech on the back of government. If you don't accommodate them, the disaster will continue to happen, maybe in the night, maybe when the officers are not looking, or they are, you understand? So what can we really do? Beyond formalization. Formalization is one thing, but what kind of model can work directly, you understand, between large-scale miners and ASM miners, such that the ASM miners is driving its own affairs at the comfort or benefit of opportuned by the LSM presence. So I want to see if there are any model like that you've ever thought of. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. And thanks again for the opportunity to speak to the group. I appreciated it. And, you know, anyone who wants to reach out to me after, you all know where to find me on LinkedIn. In terms of your question, I mean, to me, ASM is huge, but it's invisible. It's an odd thing. It's 15 million miners across Africa, 45 million miners across the world, 1 million miners in Nigeria. So it's massive. But does the global north understand it? No. Do they know what it is even? Have they heard about it? Maybe not always. And do they understand the difference between illegal and artisanal? Well, no, not necessarily. So I think one thing is, there's a role of governments. It's increasing visibility. It's increasing genuine, honest narratives on what ASM is all about. These are not corrupt. They're traditional extensions of communities. They reflect the broader region that they're in. So full stop. What does capacity development look like in relationships? Well, it varies in various situations. So I wouldn't. There's definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. If you think about it as an investor, and especially a global investor, they're going to ask two or three things. What you think about investors, they can, as they come to understand it, they'll be better able to engage ASM to drive professionalization and drive capacity in that context. But that's narrative driven, because today they don't necessarily understand it. They're worried about the risks and don't understand the difference between artisanal and illegal, partly because a lot of places just happen to call artisanal illegal, which is wrong. And your actual question, though, LSM-ASM collaboration. So look, a lot of time artisanal miners share land with large-scale mines, full stop. They were there first. They may have been the trigger for exploration from the LSM. They didn't get paid for this, though. So all of that says, if you're a large-scale mine, there's risk if you don't engage with your with artisanal miners on your land. What risk? What conflict? Legal, PR. It all boils down to, you can lose money, you can lose productivity, you can lose reputation. So large-scale miners, the opportunity for them is to work directly with ASM, and they don't want to own ASM, and they shouldn't own ASM, but they can sure support professionalization because they have in-house capacity around engineering, around safety, around good mining practices, around PPE, around governance, and so on. And they
But you have to actually decide. You have to actually source for knowledge. for you to be able to be fed. Nobody will come and feed you in your room. Today, you made the effort. So quite a number of people registered, but only a few. You know, we had 70 at the maximum. You understand, that showed up. But I tell you that one thing is for you to desire to be there, and one thing is for you not to be there. It takes a lot of effort to come, because these people that come, we don't pay them a dime. You understand? They offer sacrifices. I know what their paying fee is. So when you have the opportunity, you better catch it now, because without it, you can't excel in the mining sector. Knowledge is key to succeed in the mining sector. Once again, on behalf of women in mining, we say thank you. Leave your contacts so that we share the documents with you, and then follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on all our social media platforms so that you can track our activities. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for having us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. I enjoyed.
We can't, so please, you disconnect. But for those of you who want to watch the movie I mentioned, the video recording, the video recording cannot be shared officially. So after we have stopped recording, you can just watch to see what Africa goes through. You understand? Zimbabwe, is it Zimbabwe or Zambia? You watch and see how they are being exploited by Glencore. You understand? But it's not something you can copy. It's not something you can share, except you want to go to jail. You understand? But since you are not reproducing it officially, you can just sit down. Thank you. So Lati, you can play that, you know, where people are seated, for those who choose to remain behind to watch what happens when a community is extremely, the session has ended, so we are joking. When a community is so rich that they made so much money from Africa, took it to his own country, you understand? And then the country is extremely, extremely rich because the tax is paying back to his local government. You understand? Then the country he took it from are wallowing in poverty, suffering. That's the level. And I pray that God will help us. We won't go that route in Nigeria where we think it's, because what we are seeing now, what we are witnessing now is frightening. And most African countries where we believe it has to be an Oyinbo man, it has to be an Oyinbo person that will do this for us, you understand? So that's the title. You can look at it on, but you cannot copy, you cannot circulate it. Again, it's a strategy. I'm sure this person got so much money to do this, but equally protecting his own, because why are we not sharing it? If you look at it, even most of the Zambians they didn't see the video. It's just hidden somewhere there in the system. So God bless you all. Once again, thank you. Enjoy. Happy viewing. So you can unmute anybody now. The classes are end, and Dollarine, I want to say thank you. The crew, I want to say thank you to you for a wonderful job. Well done. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, sir. And thank you so very much, man, for
Professor Popola, thank you so much. We are counting on you for the diaspora fund. Yeah. So that's the name of the community, Roshiklon. You understand? I don't know, maybe I pronounce it very well. I'm not Dutch, but that's something. Yeah. Can you add voice? Can you add voice?
Thank you, ma.
Yes, well done, ma. This is Jovita here. Well done.
My sister, how are you, ma? How is everything,
I'm fine.
ma? Yes, fine.
Well done, ma.
I thought you are already in town.
No, I'm not, but I'm on my way.
Well done, ma. This is Honorable Chichi.
My sister, how are you, ma? God bless you.
Mommy, well done, ma. This is Dr. Luka.
Well done, my sisters. Yeah.
Well done, ma. This is Naga.
Yeah, Chinaza, thank you so much. I liked you on LinkedIn yesterday. Please be more active on LinkedIn. That's where they are recruiting, and that's where you get a lot of information. Yeah, please be more.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, ma. This is from Dr. Luka. I will see the link there, ma.
Okay. Thank you so much, my darling sister. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this session, ma'am. This is Benson Kudra Mobola. Thank you, ma.
Thank you, Mobola. Thank you, God. So you see, can we listen to this thing so that we enjoy it? For those of us who want to stay behind or you want to watch it on your own, but I just want you to see the topic so you can watch it, and then you will almost be shedding tears. This is where they were doing a debate. The mayor probably fears God, and thought that this so much money that is entering that our bank cannot even hold it. Let's return 2% of it, to Africa. They now held a meeting, and the people said, no, the council never had to interfere or defend our own proposal. So they didn't return the money. You understand? So when they come and they say they give us miserable grants that we are running after, that we are killing ourselves over, you understand? It's our money that they stole. They bring out a
why that is the grant thing is not really what we need. We need to build. I mean, the grant is not really what we need to build up our facilities.
The grant is never meant to help you. If grant is to help you, how can you be going for a meeting and they say 3,000 is what they allocated for you for grants? So you can see African communities, see where they took the minerals from, you see? I want you to watch it on your own, you understand? See the children, see the community, you understand? Where they took the copper mines, you understand? See the copper mines, see where they took it from, see their own community, millionaires, everybody in that community, they said is a millionaire. Glencore, this is under Glencore. You see how Glencore did their village. You understand? You understand? So, you see, I'm begging those of us who wants us to work together. Let us work together. It's about our children. I feel sad when I see things like this, and that's why I said, I'm not a contractor. I'm not a contractor. You understand? If I come to you, support women in mining to do something, if you don't give women in mining, if it fails, will my husband drive me out of home, or will I not eat? But we can continue to put our voice there. For blended capital now, we have begged them, at least I know we will get 2 scholarships for our girls. You understand? Am I the one going to go to school now to go and read? I don't have a child who even did geology or anything in that line. So let us make sure that there's so many things to fight for. You can see the revelation Mr. Tony gave. You can see. So disconnected, everybody disconnected, everybody disjointed, everybody just working for their own pockets. For how long? With your generation, with my generation, we see this good Nigeria. Will we see it?
Point
yes.
of correction. They are not working for their pocket. They are working for the second enslavement of the country.
That's
why do I say that? Why do I say that? If that money is in this country, we still benefit. But they always take it back to the colonial masters. As stupid as we are, and they think they are keeping money. When they die today, how many is returned to their siblings or to their children? None. So that is what I'm saying.
Please, I want you to watch this movie. Watch it and hear the story. I felt so bad yesterday that everything I just wanted to do, I just dropped it back out. So since I know I can't share it officially, I say one way or the other, I must look for a way of just letting people see it. You understand?
We see. We're
so
here. We're
it's a shame. It's a shame. And that's the part we are equally almost following now. We drove every indigenous miner away from the field. You understand? And we are saying we want investor. We want investor. We want investor. We want investor. Nigeria that even have an advantage. The money we have from oil. The money we have from oil. Why don't we use it to even support the local investors? You understand? To say, okay, this is the revenue we are making. Let us support. Let us identify the serious ones.
That is what I'm saying. It's the money in the country. The money is it in the country? It's never within in the country now. It's there. It's still, we still ask them to keep it for us.
$52 billion is what we made. You can see now from oil. Maybe it's not my figure. That's the figure the man showed us. You understand? And yet we are suffering. Yet we can't feed.
We are keeping it with them. They say it's just like when you stole money.
That's the vice president of Zambia. This white man. That's the vice president of Zambia.
How?
Well, now you can see somebody asking that a colonial farmer is the vice president of Zambia, and he will tell you that the money there. You know, it's an interesting story. Just read and just listen, and then depends on your own mood. You understand? If you are somebody like me, you'll be so annoyed that my husband has taken it yet because I was so disturbed. I get disturbed when I see things like this, man. That's also the unfortunate truth. And
the content of part of them is really disturbing.
It
you
might be
like
disturbing, but
the question you
time
asked
goes,
like the question you asked on reclamation, do you have to tell anybody? It's one stated there now that you must reclaim. They signed community agreements. You must restore the land as much back as to the something. Anytime you go to Canada again, and say until Lami, tell your children you want to go to British Columbia. In British Columbia and Canada, tell them you want to go to Save Heaven what is garden. That was a mining site. When you enter that garden, it's like you're in paradise in heaven. The man was a miner, you understand? But unfortunately, after completing everything, the man died, you understand? The woman reclaimed that land and converted it. The money they are making from that garden now is more than what they were making from mining, because she turned it to a multi-billion-dollar investment. There's no way you get to Canada for vacation that you won't want to visit that garden. You understand?
I will go one of these days.
People pay, you pay to enter, but there's no way you won't want to enter and see. And you'll be saying, where are you? Are you in paradise? Is this how paradise was described? You understand? So, but we remind how many children have fallen into pit and died. Myself and Adiku Brown, we did that studies at Sabak, I see 2004 or 5. You understand? Where we went to Bokos and all those things. You see the mine pits all over the place. Rayfield, you see the mine pits. You understand? So it's our country. I don't know, maybe he's still alive now, but Sada, when I was in House of Reps, DJ something, and we gave him money, said they were going to do land reclamation. Did they do the reclamation? They did not, but the money disappeared. You understand? So when you talk like this, you understand, they will say, oh, you're anti-government. You understand? So, and at the point in time, one just learn to keep quiet. Compare, that is Roshicom village. Look at the village, see their own side, see their own beauty. Where will their lives not be longer?
I wonder.
Where will their lives not be? You understand? Than we who were battling flies, battling everything, contaminated the environment for us and everything. So we all look at money, but money is not everything. You understand? Even if nothing we are doing, let us all pick up the crusade, you understand, to challenge the status quo. You understand? Let's pick up the status, because we are getting there. I want to finish conference before I start telling you in the course of what we've entered. You understand? We have to go for different training where some of us have to go and do some certifications. You know, we don't all have to mine. We all can do some other things in the industry. And so those are the things we are working on. You understand? We don't have to mine. Be like the policeman in the system and checkmate, because Nigeria will grow there. May God give us long life to be able to witness some of these things.
Amen.
So it's an interesting night. It's an interesting opportunity, and we thank God for it. You know, we appreciate God for it. Our struggle, we keep on struggling. We keep on struggling, even though it's not making us too popular in the ministry, because even some of our sisters who should be on our side are even the ones fighting us in the eyes of government. But we continue to do, we can't stop. I can't stop, unfortunately. It's too late in the day to stop. Maybe early days I will have stopped, but now it's too late. So government supports you, government will support you. As long as I have, even if it's only my computer alone, I will continue to do what I do. Because I get irritated when I see all these things, when I see the deals that are going on, some that we cannot even speak out to ourselves. Some that we cannot even speak out to ourselves, you understand? That we cannot even speak out in the open like this. Serious deals that is happening in a sector where we say there's no development. How can, I don't know any miner in Nigeria now, local miner that can plan anything between last year and now. You understand? Dr. Salah, the press
They are not
conference,
responding.
anyway, Michelle said it went well. You understand? Ambassador
It went
Regina
well.
could not,
Look, everything is on the platform, man.
I know. We go and read it there. Ambassador Regina could not attend because she was down with. She's been down for about a week now. But Michelle, we send Michelle to represent us.
Michelle was there.
And so that they won't think we chickened out. So I just insisted somebody must be there to represent us. And thank God it was Michelle that went. No, it's a very bad situation for Nigeria. Very bad situation. You understand? How can anybody? In fact, I don't see how those miners can pay that money. Except those people who are Chinese based. You understand?
But that's there's always a way of chasing the local people out.
Strategy needs a strategy to chase them out now. It's a strategy.
And then, we are not saying they should not go international, but give little to the local people. And we are not even asking them for money anymore. We are asking them for a equipment leasing so that we can produce more to make up for our own gain, the time, we will be able to conserve the time, and then the production will be increased, and then we give them whatever they want. We are not asking them to bring money because they are always afraid of giving us money.
And when it comes to that money, they're always panicking because it will reduce what they can eat at a time.
No, it will reduce what they will take to the colonial master to keep.
It's interesting. God bless you all. God be with you all. Thank you so much. Good night.
God bless you. Good night. God bless you.
So listening to that, it will inspire you. Just listen. So you know the sector you are in. So when you see things happening, it will inspire you to talk, to stand up, to defend the defenseless. You understand? We cannot continue as a nation or as a continent like this. So God be with you all. Good night. See you.
Good night. God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Good night, man.
Good night, man. Kaka, good night. Yeah, thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, good night, Dr. Janet.
Abdurrahman, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Actually, I'm a student, and this is actually my first time or my first experience of this gold mining.
Let me see your face. Let me see your face now.
Oh, okay.
You are hiding your video. It's an opportunity to talk. Yeah.
Okay. Let me switch on my. Sorry, just hold on a little bit. Yes. Oh, this thing is okay. Yeah. Can you see me?
No, I'm not seeing you. What I'm still seeing is, okay, the screen. Let me stop the sharing of the screen. I think the screen is, okay, the people sharing the screen, so I won't be able to say, okay, this will stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Yes. So I've stopped the screen so you can come on board now.
Yeah, I'm already on board. I think I switched on my video.
Okay, I can see you now. Yeah.
Yeah, good evening, ma. Yeah.
Good evening. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you, ma. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't have any experience with mining. I'm a student, I'm a postgraduate student. And
postgraduate students where in what?
Oh, so I'm a postgraduate student in data analytics and society. I'm doing research in environmental psychology at the University of Manchester in England. So
okay, yeah.
So today, it was just this morning, I stumbled on a video that was I think it was a NAPAC webinar which you attended on NAPAC CDI monthly virtual series. A webinar which you attended, which was uploaded I think last 2 weeks. So that was I got into you, and so because I've been interested in the mining sector, just on a subconscious level, just wanted to know what's happening there and what opportunities are there. So the video was kind of like the perfect introduction, and I watched the video and got inspired by your conversation there, and so I then went on to search for you and connected with you on LinkedIn, probably you would see the request.
I saw you, but I've not been able to respond because I was rushing for this meeting. It's after this meeting that I'll go back to the.
I think I connected on Facebook as well. I was just interested in like knowing the opportunities within the mining sector and seeing what opportunities are there that one can, tap into. So that video was a very good introduction, which I've not even finished watching. But then thankfully, when I was then researching, I went to your website and I saw that this event was happening today. And I was like, this is a perfect, I was like, oh, no way, I have to register for this. Like, this is a perfect introduction for the policy aspect and the opportunities aspect. What a beautiful coincidence. And then I registered for it and got that's how I came on board. Yeah. And just, looking at hearing these issues that, have been discussed and, yeah, I mean, it's quite a whole lot. Like, this is the best introduction that I could have ever, asked for. Looking at the challenges, which are quite saddening, to be honest, and also the opportunities. So yeah, I guess there's room for for me to explore whatever I can explore and probably choose my crusade, as you just said. To see what I can do or how I can try to come into all this. So I really want to thank you very much, Matt, for all your work and for organizing this as well.
Thank you so much. It's always my joy to understand when I equally meet people, because the world, you understand, is such that we are all learning from one another. Because if you are just doing your master's or something, so I must be far older than you.
Oh yeah, sure, definitely.
So I'm happy, but there's a lot to learn from the Gen Z, the Alpha, and the soon to be beta generation. There's so much to learn from you guys. You understand? Like, I keep on joking. I said, you guys are free-spirited. You are not tied down anywhere. I remember that I went to a meeting, or was it that a meeting, and the way the one of their staff dressed and came into the meeting, and I was wondering, I looked at the boss, well, he felt comfortable. So after they left, he said, that's the generation. You understand? All I want is what is upstairs in his head. You understand? So I understand you people perfectly. So it's nice having you. And if feel free, you understand, if there are areas, data analytics will interest me, because I'm doing something now, mining and governance across Africa, looking at the policies. So we can collaborate, because you will be very good with data and I'll be good with the content. So we can always look at, and there's no end to anything. You understand what I mean? So for me, it's we do this on the third Thursday of every month. Why we did it today was just because of Rob Karpati. We ought to have done it on the 15th, but every third Thursday of every month, mark your calendar. Okay. You understand? And if you go over our site, you will see all the previous ones we have done. And at the end of this year, I'm doing a compendium of just what we have done. You understand? It's in a book form, so that people can flip through and read people's perspectives and thoughts, you understand, to some of the things we've done. So it's nice chatting with you, and I wish you all the best in your studies, you understand? Yes, I'm very poor with this thing, and my work, for example, now we are preparing for the conference. Because I guess you're in Europe right now, isn't it?
Correct, ma'am.
We are preparing for a conference, so I'm extremely busy right now, you understand? By God's grace, after the 28th, I'll have some fresh air. That's September 28th.
Okay.
Yeah. No, October, after October, because after September 28th, I've just gotten a letter. What is this letter? Okay, that's my alma mater. Loughborough University is inviting me to come speak to their students. When is this? Okay. Okay, this one is 28th October. You understand?
Okay.
Better to help you as a speaker and after. Okay, 31st October. It was from 28th October to 31st October. Okay. So after that, at least I think I'm just going to close my schedule for the year, so that I can rest a little. Exactly. So maybe I can rest a little, because
is there like a newsletter to keep up?
Yeah, I'll send you one right too. Like me on connect. I think I shared my number. Let me give you my number. So I just send it to you right now. We have a newsletter. We have a quarterly newsletter.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah.
And then you can equally volunteer to be part of us. You understand? So we need all the hands we can get if you have the time.
Yes.
So my number is +234.
Okay.
+234.
Okay. Yeah.
806
806
579
579
4162.
4162. Great.
Then the second number is +1 because I'm in Houston as I'm talking to you now. +1.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah,
225
225
328
328
5561.
5561. Okay. Yeah, great.
5561. So that's my second number. Okay. So thank you. Yeah. God bless you.
Which one is more accessible in this number?
The two, but the +1 is very, very accessible because it's the number I carry most of the time for the past few months. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
my family is here, so I live here, but I work in Nigeria. I travel back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Which country